What attracted you guys into the roles? It's when you first read the script, what was your initial reaction, and what made you really want to be a part of this movie?
Well, I think that it was very obvious to me when I read the script that it was just a compelling story, and that's something that seems to be dwindling away in Hollywood these days. Not to knock it, but or not dwindling away, but something that's it's if you find a story that speaks to you and that's interesting, and characters that are very very rich characters and a rich story that. It was a no-brainer for me when I read the script. It was like, this would be a great thing for me to do, and it was something very different than I was used to doing. So, and then I heard that Giovanni was attached, and I went, yes, please.
Likewise, buddy. Likewise.
Safety in numbers. No, but honestly, that was it. You want to work with great directors and great writers and great actors, and Bobby Moresco is a real talent and terrific guide through all this process, and he just wrote a great screenplay, and it was something that you read it and it went, I want to be a part of this.
And how about you, Jim?
For me, yeah, I was saying before, I initially was just, my agent told me about it, and I was just like, I don't want to do another mob movie. I mean, I just feel like this has been done over and over again. But then I read it, and it was really something that was personal, and it seemed to have an interesting concept or take on this family and their dynamics with each other. And it's really a story about loyalty and betrayal and secrets and what people hide from each other. And it was also just the character, this guy who really puts that aspect, that the idea of loyalty and friendship and brotherhood to the forefront of his life and his mind, almost at the expense of himself. And then I had a meeting, and there's so many different aspects to making a decision on a film, and because there's so many different parts to it. But it was definitely because James was involved, one, and then it was also Bobby and the conversation that I had with him, and it just seemed like it was something that I wanted and needed to do at the time. Well, I think again, it's for me and for my character, it's based on that idea of loyalty and that brotherhood, and sort of the history of these people, in that they were, I guess the characters were loosely based on real people and actual events. And it was also a thing that to be able to sort of get in the trenches with a guy, Bobby Moresco, who lived that life. He grew up in Hell's Kitchen in the 1970s, and it was really a learning experience to do that. And I was saying before, half the rehearsal process was really about stories from him and things and sort of little things that you could use, I guess, and that would sort of apply to a certain moment or scene in the script that were personal, and it became that, and that's always a blessing, I think, when you can get involved in a movie and people are sort of just like, here's my heart and my life, and let's do this, and it becomes more of an organic process that way.
Well, I think that to kind of backtrack a little bit too, one of the reasons why I think this movie separates itself from a lot of the gangster films out there, or I don't even call them gangster films, mob movies or whatever, is a lot of people associate those films with just a lot of brutality and killing, and I think this movie exposes a lot of the inner workings of a lot of that. It's not all about splashing blood all over the camera, and obviously that's an element to the movie, but it's not. You see into these people's psyches, and you start to understand why they're doing what they're doing, and it takes place in a time that, it's in the '80s, and the mafia was sort of petering out, and it's sort of up to this young character of Joey to decide whether or not he wants to resurrect his father and keep this going, and in a whole different way, in a business sort of way. And I play Tommy, his cousin, who were basically brothers. I mean, that's, we grew up together under the same parents, basically, my character wants to sort of get away from it and has to at some point, so he goes and joins the Marines. And once he gets out of the Marines, because he didn't find what he was looking for there, he comes home and finds his brothers involved with all of the stuff that he was trying to get away from and separate himself from. And I get an offer from the FBI to go in and undercover against my brothers to basically sort of help them, unbeknownst to them. But if I get them this mob boss, Reggio, then we have a deal that my brothers will go off, scot-free. So, so it's just sort of like tiptoes around that. Is Tommy being, is he betraying somebody or is he helping somebody? And it's all rooted with family.
Yeah, I think that goes for everybody in the film. I think that there always is, just with human beings in general, that gray area, and it's not necessarily this delineation of black and white, good versus evil. And so, I think that was a specific thing that Bobby wanted to talk about, more or less in the context of the film, as far as everybody was concerned, not just trying to point out police corruption, but really just how there's a certain path in your life and a certain environment that you grow up in, or neighborhood, and you can either go to the left or to the right, but you're still at the core a human being and who you are. And I think that speaks a lot for my character as well, in that, ultimately as an actor, you don't want to go into a movie judging the character at all, but you just want to understand and sort of try to put yourself there in their stead, in a way of like, what would I do, or is that inside of me? And yeah, ultimately, yeah, it's human behavior. It's not necessarily about police or mob or good versus evil.
Well, he dealt with a lot of that in Crash too, didn't he? I mean, with Matt Dillon's character which I liked. I mean, a lot of people say he was, a villain in that film or a bad guy, but it exposes the realities that human beings are nuanced. It's like Giovanni said, it's not a black and white delineation. It's, we're all capable of screwing up. We're all capable of doing good things. We all have the capacity to do not so good things either, because life puts us in situations where we can't always do the right thing, and it's, I've never met a person that's never made a mistake. So that to me is interesting. It speaks on a more human level, because but inherently we all do make mistakes, and we all are shades of gray, of good and bad, and so that's why I think the movie works so well on that level.